My 29-year-old wife went to an anime convention and hid most of the convention from me and is being very vague about telling me anything. I am 31 years old. Background: we have been married for 4 years, and currently have a 3-year-old son and have been a couple for around 8 years. In general, we have very little issues. 2 weekends ago there was an anime convention. Originally we were both going to go along with 2 of her friends, Jane and Becky. Our parents were going to look after our son for the weekend, but suddenly were not able to. My wife spent a fair amount of time working on her cosplay and was pretty badly hurt finding out that we probably weren't able to find a replacement sitter for the weekend. So I agreed to let her go with her friends as a weekend off, and I would look after our son. Stuff was fine when she got there, until Friday night where stuff got kind of weird. She would take hours to reply to my messages, and when she did it would be extremely brief with nothing beyond a simple one-line answer. She ended up not showing for FaceTime with our son. It wasn't until 3 a.m. that she messaged me back telling me she forgot as she is hanging out with some of Becky's friends. Saturday she texted me once in the morning telling me she is dying of a hangover, and that is pretty much the only message. I was getting kind of annoyed, so I messaged her friend Jane, who I know very well. Jane said apparently as soon as they got there they met up with Becky's friends, who proceeded to pretty much ditch Jane. She was apparently super hurt. Pretty weird, especially considering Jane is my wife's best friend. She had no idea where my wife was, and he didn't show up to some panels both her and my wife wanted to go. I start freaking out and called multiple times. My wife finally messages me back that she needs time to unplug and not be a mom and wants time with her friends. I'm okay with that, but I mentioned what Jane messaged me back. First she got upset and said I don't trust her, then she said Jane wanted to do a bunch of things that her and Becky had no interest in. Okay, fair enough. I told her to be safe, and to message me before she leaves. She didn't message me all of Sunday, and apparently Jane was livid because my wife no-showed for some exclusive thing that Jane worked very hard to get both her and my wife access to. On Monday morning Jane texted me again to tell me that my wife and Becky didn't show up for their flight, and she has no idea where they are. My wife messages me an hour later telling me she overslept and missed her flight and she will take Tuesday's flight home. I was very weirded out by everything at this point. I got her on Tuesday and she was very happy to see me, but at the same time has not really told me much about what she did. Apparently her and Jane had a huge fight over plans and they decided to take a break from being friends according to her. However, I know nothing about what she did the other days. Every time I try to bring it up she gets very defensive and accuses me of not trusting her, and even then she will only tease the barest of information. Tonight we had a huge argument about this because I mentioned she didn't post any photos of her weekend to Instagram, which she normally would do, and she exploded. Then proceeded to cry for most of the evening, and doesn't want to talk about it. Also, I fully expected her to come back with a ton of merch, like she used to. But she came back with none, and apparently she threw her cosplay she spent over a year making because it was falling apart. I feel lost. Any advice? Also, I apologize, English is not my first language. TLDR, wife went to convention with friends, ghosted me and doesn't want to talk about her weekend. Sorry I fell asleep after posting this and need to run to work. I am going to try once more to sit down and talk with her when she gets home. I will reply to stuff when I get a chance. Thank you. Comments. 1. The biggest red flag is her exploding when you asked about Instagram and then crying all night. Why is she so defensive? 2. Throwing away her cosplay she worked so hard on, missing events, not wanting photos or merchandising from the time she was there, a lot of red flags that could mean she was assaulted. I don't think we can guess accurately as to what happened, but it seems like something big happened and she's having a lot of negative emotions afterwards, such as assault or cheating that she later regrets, or dr* or something else big. 3. Yep, I made a comment about how she either made a bad decision or something really bad happened to her. And she was overly happy to be home, kind of as a coping mechanism. Either way up needs to have a serious conversation. 4. A serious conversation where he goes into it with understanding and compassion just in case it is the worst case scenario. All these people suggesting ultimatums need to calm down. If he goes in with that and she was assaulted and didn't cheat, she'll never tell him and continue to suffer, or she will tell him and it'll ruin their marriage. The worst thing you can do to an assault victim is victimize them all over again with threats and ultimatums. If she admits to cheating, then he can be angry all he wants and I'll help him file for divorce. But until then he needs to be a decent human being and act like he loves his wife who is clearly hurting. 5. That was my thought too. Everything else was a bit sketchy and maybe she was cheating, but throwing away a cosplay she spent a year making and crying all evening. That's not the behavior of a cheater. That's the behavior of someone with a painful secret. 6. Cheating on your husband while he's at home watching your 3-year-old son sounds to me like a painful secret. If it was an assault, I think she would have most likely opened up to her husband at some point. She did something and felt ashamed of it afterward, and the fact that she threw away her costume is probably because she doesn't want to remember that mistake or bring it back home. 7. I have known a few people in my life that have been sad. They're usually distant and not themselves anymore. It's like they're DEA asterisk but the light is still on in their brain. 8. Well, she is your wife with a child. So you need to sit her down and ask her to tell you the truth about the weekend, the missed flight, everything. Tell her if she values this marriage you need all the info. Don't waver, stick up for yourself and your family. 9. She had no idea where my wife was, and he didn't show up to some panels both her and my wife wanted to go. You know that right there is a one super sus behavior. People can say whatever they like about insecurity, control issues and whatnot, but that is just being shady, especially considering that anime conventions are packed with hot people. Like a sardine can of oily, hot people dressed as the characters everyone fantasizes about. Yet it stuck out badly and made me feel really uncomfortable, especially considering how she spent so long talking and planning what was going to do at the con. 10. Sorry man, I would have had some explanation for the lost time, and I wouldn't be so defensive if I wasn't up to something weird. Tell her since she refuses to talk to you about it, you are going to have to act accordingly to what all this looks like from your perspective. If she won't be honest with you after that, then speak with a lawyer and start getting your ducks in a row, but I'm betting it's exactly what it looks like. Another user said it best, she wanted time off from being a mom and being a faithful wife as well. 11. I mean, at first the expectation of constant lengthy texts and calls seems a bit much, but your conversation with Jane pretty much seals the deal. She cheated. She wouldn't be so evasive and crying for hours if she didn't do something wrong. It sounds like she didn't even sleep in her hotel room. I guess he hit it off with one of Becky's friends and they spent half the week partying and flirting. It makes no sense that she would ditch Jane on these really important panels and throw away a cosplay she spent a year working on if she wasn't doing something nefarious. Once he realized you weren't going to be there, his whole demeanor changed once he got to the convention, and people go wild on that. I've heard tons of similar stories from people going to professional white-collar conventions. It's like people see it as a week off from their life and everyone around them is in a similar field or interest, and there's usually lots of alcohol, so people's inhibitions are just gone. If she says, "Oh, you don't trust me," just say, "No, I don't. Your behavior makes no sense and you're acting strange. At this point I'm convinced something happened and you need to tell me what it is or this marriage is over." 12. It's entirely possible she went and got drunk to unwind with some new friends, and it's possible she was getting railed by a guy dressed like Gaku. You will probably never know for sure. On the plus side, I doubt her ex-friend would cover for her now. Advice-wise, I am sure your wife knows she managed to do some serious and maybe permanent damage to at least 2 important relationships for people she will never see again, so grilling her won't help. You should just sit her down when she feels better and lay out that you don't feel like you can trust anything she says about the convention. It will take a while to repair that. 13. She probably cheated on you. Now she needs time to make up whatever excuse she thinks will work so you don't divorce her. Be prepared to get blamed once the truth comes out, or for her to say she was drunk and it was a mistake.